For the first time since May 3, 2013, the NBA playoffs will feature 4 games on a single weeknight. So break out your second screen and get ready for 5+ hours of wall-to-wall postseason action, with 2 games tipping off at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and 2 more at 9:30. The early block features 2 Eastern Conference series knotted up at 2 games apiece, and the late block will see the Timberwolves and Thunder try to extend theirs against the Rockets and Jazz, who are both a win away from advancing to the second round. With so much basketball about to be played, we've got your guides to the players, stats, trends, beefs and everything else you'll need to keep an eye on Wednesday night. Indiana Pacers at Cleveland Cavaliers, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. TNT series tied 2-2 play. Kevin Love breaks down what the Cavaliers need to do in Game 5 versus the Pacers. How'd we get here? The Pacers won wire-to-wire in Game 1, and the Cavs did the same in Game 2. The Pacers erased a 17-point deficit to win Game 3, then erased a 16-point deficit in Game 4 and had the lead midway through the fourth quarter, but Cleveland outscored Indiana 13-7 in the final 4 minutes to escape with a win and even the series. What's at stake? Not only has LeBron James never lost a first-round series, he has never even faced elimination in his 12 previous trips to the opening round of the playoffs. To keep that streak intact, he'll probably need another Herculean effort. In Cleveland's 2 wins in this series, HES averaging 39 points on 63% shooting. Those numbers dropped to 26 and 43.6 in Cleveland's losses. With a win, the Pacers can put the Cavaliers on the brink of elimination heading back to Indiana for Game 6. The Pacers haven't been beyond the first round of the playoffs since 2014, when they lost to James' Miami Heat squad in the Eastern Conference Finals. Series-defining stat. James has been aggressive attacking the basket in the first half in this series but strayed farther from the rim after halftime, when the Cavs have let double-digit leads slip away in 3 of the 4 games. 1 Stone half second half Game 16.31 5.3 Game 210.51 7.0 Game 39.21 8.8 Game 47.91 4.7 Impact injuries. Cavs starting point guard George Hill missed Game 4 because of back spasms and is questionable for Game 5. Tyronn Lue says that George Hill's back remains questionable for Game 5. Hill was able to go through some shooting drills at Tuesday's practice. If Hill plays at all, he will start rather than come off the bench, according to Lue. Dave McMenamin, ESPN staff writer 21H ago his story lesson. In a best-of-7 series tied 2-2, the winner of Game 5 goes on to win the series 83% of the time. The Cavs have won 50% of their playoff series when tied 2-2, most recently beating the Raptors in 6 games in the 2016 Eastern Conference Finals. The Pacers have won only 33% of their playoff series when tied 2-2, most recently losing to those same Raptors in 7 games in the first round in 2016, required reading. The Cavaliers say that Pacers guard, an historical LeBron irritant, Lance Stevenson isn't worth the extra energy of getting caught up in his antics. He's not going to fight, Jeff Green told ESPN after Game 4. I'm not going to fight. It's not worth it. I mean, if we wanted to fight, there's a big-ass parking lot out there and we can fight. But at the end of the day, my job is to keep my composure. Go to the free throw line, knock one down and then move on. It's not worth it to give that extra energy to him. Read story. Washington Wizards at Toronto Raptors, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. NBA TV series tied 2-2 play. Bradley Beal drops 31 points before fouling out and John Wall adds 27 of his own to lead the Wizards to a close 106-98 win over the Raptors in Game 4. How'd we get here? If a playoff series doesn't truly begin until the road team wins, then this one is still in the starting blocks. The Raptors won the postseason opener for the first time in franchise history, then put up 130 points in a dominating Game 2 win. But when the series shifted to Washington, the Wizards took control, blowing out Toronto in Game 3, then using a dominant fourth quarter in Game 4 to tie the series. What's at stake? The Raptors are the 1 seed in the East after a franchise record 57-win regular, and want to avoid being just the 4th top seed to lose to an 8 seed since the first round expanded to 7 games. Of note, the 3 previous 1 seeds to lose a best-of-7 all lost in 6 games. The Wizards are looking to advance to the second round for the 2nd consecutive year, and 4th time in 5 years. Series-defining stat. While the road hasn't been kind to Toronto 1-6 in its past 7 road games dating to the regular, home has been much better. The Raptors' 34-7 mark in Toronto was tied for the best home record in the NBA and the team has won 7 of its past 8 first-round home games. Impact injuries. Second-year guard Fred VanVleet's shoulder contusion, a sixth Man of the Year candidate, has played only 3 minutes in this series and is expected to miss Game 5 for the Raptors. History lesson. The Raptors have won 50% of their playoff series when tied 2-2, most recently knocking out the Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games in last year's first round. The Wizards have won just 36% of their playoff series when tied 2-2, most recently losing to the Celtics in the second round last year in a series where the home team won all 7 games. Required reading. Kevin Arnovitz writes that Raptors star DeMar DeRozan fell back into old habits in Game 4, something he'll need to avoid going forward. The fact that the Wizards have eased some of that pressure and attention should not be an invitation for the Raptors' most prolific player to revert to her old habits, but a challenge for him to maintain the new ones. Read story. Minnesota Timberwolves at Houston Rockets, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. TNT Rockets lead 3-1 play behind James Harden's 34 points and the team posting 50 in the third quarter. The Rockets take a commanding 3-1 series lead. How'd we get here? After Houston took the first 2 games at home, Minnesota bounced back with a win in Game 3, and trailed by just a point at halftime in Game 4 before a 50-point third quarter pushed the Rockets to a win and left the Timberwolves on the verge of elimination. What's at stake? Minnesota is trying to extend its first postseason trip since 2004 for at least another game, and Houston can advance to the second round for the second straight year and third time in 4s with a win. Complete coverage. Expert picks. Bracket. The most binge-worthy playoffs ever. Injuries that will impact the playoffs. ESPN forecast. Who advances to round 2? Is this the best postseason rookie class? What do the Pelicans do with Cousins? Bucks are counting on the Giannis effect. Celtics. Tatum, Brown owning the moment. Rockets find rhythm in historic third quarter. OKC on the brink of elimination after rout. Top social media moments of the week. Tickets on Vivid Seats. Series defining stat. The Timberwolves are falling victim to what's becoming known in NBA circles as the math problem. Minnesota has made only 1 fewer field goal than Houston in this series, 151-150, but is being outscored by 26 points thanks to a huge deficiency at the three-point line. The Rockets have made 57 three-pointers, to only 36 for the Wolves. Impact injuries. Ryan Anderson ankle returned in Game 3 and has played at least 17 minutes in each of the past 2 games for the Rockets. Luke Mbah shoulder remains out. History lesson. The Rockets have won all 7 previous series in which they've taken a 3-1 lead, ending 5 of those in Game 5, including last year's first-round series against the Thunder. The only other time the Timberwolves faced a 3-1 deficit was the 2004 Western Conference Finals, when they beat the Los Angeles Lakers in Game 5 to stay alive but lost the series in Game 6. Required reading. Tim McMahon writes that the Rockets finally found their rhythm in the third quarter of Game 4, and that could be scary for the rest of the NBA. That was the game. That was almost certainly the series, with the Rockets taking a commanding 3-1 lead before returning to Houston. That's all the Rockets needed to regain the swagger of a 65-win team after sort of scuffling through the first few games of this first-round series. Read story. Utah Jazz at Oklahoma City Thunder, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. NBA Jazz lead 3-1 play. Rachel Nichols is impressed by Utah's ability to zone in on getting the job done as a team through 4 games against Oklahoma City. How'd we get here? Since Paul George scored 36 points to lead the Thunder to a Game 1 win, he has struggled with his shooting. Meanwhile, Donovan Mitchell has taken over, leading the Jazz to 3 consecutive wins. Oklahoma City lost double-digit leads in Games 2 and 3, and led by as many as 8 in Game 4 before Utah took control. What's at stake? The Jazz are a win away from defying expectations and reaching the second round for the second consecutive year, a position few thought they'd be in after losing Gordon Hayward in free agency last summer. The Thunder are a loss away from defying expectations in a bad way, and potentially bringing an earlier-than-expected end to George time with the team. Series-defining stat. While Russell Westbrook's budding rivalry with Ricky Rubio got most of the attention in Game 4, it's Mitchell who has been outplaying the reigning MVP, particularly in crunch time. Mitchell Westbrook PG 10.71.7 FG PCT 50.020.03 PT FG FGA 4.80.0 17-18 Impact injuries. Thunder defensive ace Andre Robertson remains out for the because of a ruptured patella tendon. History lesson. The Jazz have won all 8 of their previous series in which they had a 3-1 lead. Utah has not been in this situation since 2010, when it took a 3-1 lead against the Denver Nuggets but lost Game 5 on the road before ending the series in Game 6. Including their time in Seattle, the Thunder is 0-11 in a series when trailing 3-1, including last year's first-round series against the Rockets, when they lost in Game 5, required reading. Royce Young writes that the Jazz style of play might be too much for an inefficient Thunder team to overcome. Utah generates better, more consistent shots from efficiency areas, while the Thunder basically cross their fingers that their superstar players have a good night. Even when their looks have been clean, like they were for Carmelo Anthony in Game 4, they aren't going down. Read story.